So, well, we have all our panelists here. I was worried that Eferemo might be missed out, but I'm glad to know that he's here. So, and we also have a good number of audience here with us as well. So I think we're good to go. So, Bula, everyone, and a very warm Pacific greetings to you all. And, let me introduce myself. My name is Komal, and I'm the Pacific Island representative for the Sustainable Ocean Alliance and the moderator for today's session. And before I sort of give us a brief overview and the speaker lineup, there was this quote that I read a few weeks back when we were hosting our own Talanoa dialogue, and I'll just say it out for the audience as well that only we humans make waste that nature can't digest. I hope for your help to explore and protect the ocean in ways that will restore the health and, in doing so, secure hope for humankind. Health to the ocean means health for us. No water, no life. And I feel that this statement cannot be emphasized, anymore, because us in the Pacific, we know how important the ocean is to us, our ocean, our ohana. So, with that, I would, acknowledge our panelists today. Thank you so much, Salote, Andrew, Eferemo, and Alisi for joining us and, to be willing to share your knowledge and experiences with our audience today. And we do really hope that we can make it as engaging as possible for our audience today. And so before I pose my questions to the panelists, just to sort of briefly talk a bit about ocean health, the Pacific holds over 707.5 million kilometer cubed of water, more than twice that of any other ocean body. The ocean also plays a critical role in capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And at the same time, the living resources of the Pacific Ocean represent a rich natural capital that provides benefits for all people in and beyond the region. These benefits are called ecosystem services and include a broad range of connections between the environment, development, and human well-being. So our session today will focus on the complex discussion of the ocean climate nexus, the impacts of increased carbon emissions on ocean health, the importance of healthy oceans to the Pacific, and the role of young people in the Pacific in the ongoing implementation of constructive and practical solutions to maintain and protect our ocean. So, and before I ask the questions to the panelists, just some housekeeping rules, I guess, just to keep us in line and make sure that we are within the allocated time frame as well. So for the panelists, if you are not speaking, then please do keep your audio on mute so we can avoid the echoes. And if at any point you feel that your network is not too stable, then you're free to switch off your video as well so that we can hear you properly. But otherwise, it's all good. And also for our participants, for our audience today, you can interact with us, with the panelists as well in the chat box. So if you have any questions as the panelists are speaking, please do post it here. And there's also a tab on Q&A on the right-hand corner as well. So you can... So you can, ask your questions and we can do some engaging questions and answers as well. So with that, we have three overarching questions for our session today, and the panelists can focus their responses around this. So the first one is, what are some issues or activities specific to ocean health and sustainability that you think we need to talk more about in the Pacific? How can we build and mold young ocean leaders? What can we do more? And the last one, what are your thoughts on the integration of traditional knowledge systems in designing adaptation systems for our oceans? And with these questions in mind, let me introduce our first panelist for today, Ms. Salote Nasalo. So Salote is currently a Master's Scholarship awardee for the ACIAR PASS Scholarship Program and is also the president for the Pacific Center for Environment and Sustainable Development Graduate Students Association. which is a student-led movement focused on inspiring, motivating, and empowering individuals towards sustainable development and a sustainable future for all. She has led and organized several successful mangrove planting activities, plastic-free coastal activities, and several humanitarian projects. This has led to her interest in understanding and identifying integrative approaches that could be used to enhance mangrove management, especially for CSOs, governments, NGOs who actively take part in mangrove planting initiatives. And with this, the floor is all yours, Salote. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Ms. Komal Kumar, for that wonderful introduction. After that introduction, I feel a bit embarrassed to talk now. You kind of summarized everything I wanted to say. So thank you, Yes for Pacific, for inviting me to be a part of today's panel. And I'm sure that I'm surrounded by a well-experienced panelists who are more vast in knowledge with the ocean thematic build-up for COP26, and such a privilege to be here and be a part of this panel discussion. I will briefly talk about the PSSD Student Association and what we have been doing for the past few years. From when I got in as a postgraduate student, and then I graduated and I moved on with my master's program. And it's been a very beautiful journey. And I have involved myself with a few regional students who actually became very good friends, and hoping to collaborate with them more in the future. So we are a part of the USPSA Lagala campus here in Fiji, and the PSSD Research Center consists of postgraduate students from across the region, Solomon, Tonga, Samoa, Vanuatu, searching diversity of students. And we refer to ourselves as Climate Leaders Pacifica. And we have joined the Student Association, and it's a participatory initiative that not only students study climate change, but to also form a movement and alliance of network to put into practical what we have learned theoretically. And we would like to make a difference in the lives of people and the communities that we reached out to. So the PSSP, some of the initiatives that the PSSP students have participated in is they took up a lead facilitating role to initiate the mangrove planting, 50,000 mangrove plantings across Nasalo, Lami, even right down to Nandi, Saweni, up to Mba. We're aiming to reach our target of 50,000 mangroves around the Pikaram Park area, the Nasalo seawall area, and we have extended our program, reaching out to other upcoming NGOs, newly established NGOs, and I will be discussing them more in my discussion. And for the initiatives that we have participated in, so we actually involve the private sectors, including Coca-Cola, Amatil, and Paradise Beverages, ministerial department like the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Fiji, the Ministry of Lands and Mineral Resources. It's very important to keep them involved, because, as you know, they get more knowledge and they could actually advise us on what we can do. So we also partake in the disaster relief that happened last year. For tropical cyclone Harold in Watu last year, Kandaban Malolo. This was in conjunction with the Hako Nations. That's the Nantanga Rugby Club from Singapore, and it was a beautiful, sentimental trip, because we actually saw firsthand the destruction climate change can pose into our ohana, the Pacific. And the mango planting initiatives project, we saw that mangoes couldn't grow, so we had to think of an alternative coastal rehabilitation that we had to introduce to the community. So we introduced the coconut shoots planting around the coastal areas, because sea level rising sea level was very, very dominant around the coastal region. And every time there's a high tide, seawater comes trolling in right into the villages. And it's quite a very sad sight to look at when we were there. So we held awareness programs for communities, especially the youth children, and we hope that they have continued with the initiative that we have introduced to them. The mangrove planting that we did in partnership here in the Western Empire, the Youth for Climate Action here in the West, for the Money Home in the University of Fiji around 2019, around the coastal areas of Ba, from Visisibunda until Butua. It's really beautiful to see a movement of youth around Fiji that's really passionate. They're not even studying climate change, but they felt the need that there needs to be a movement. And it's such a beautiful sight to see the unifying of youths, different race, different diverse religion coming together for the fight against climate change and the hope to keep our people and our ohana safe. So it's been an ongoing, challenging, and enjoyable journey for all of us. And as graduate students, one of the main key of our existence in USP is to do research for our thesis. And it was quite a blessing to have senior students who actually told us, the juniors, that we can actually take up these case study areas as our areas for research, doing our masters and our PhD. So it was like two birds, one stone, passion and academic going together. So yes, it's been a very challenging and enjoyable journey that I mentioned. And LUSP places the graduate students who is also playing a role in upcoming researchers, volunteer, they give their time, their money, the a part of this initiative, and it's such a spectacular image to watch. I mentioned in most of the panels and talk shows that I've been invited to, and even to the student association that I'm heavily involved with, that while you're here, create your network, make friends. You don't know, you're probably making friends with the future Prime Minister for the Solomon Island, or the future Minister for Environment or Fisheries and so on. So by the time you go back to your homeland, you can continue the good work that we have started here together in Fiji. So, and here at the University of South Pacific, while you're a student. And projections have been made that by 2050, 800 coastal communities and villages in Fiji will have to relocate, and that's only in Fiji. What about the rest of the Pacific? And because of sea level rise, and we have so far, from my understanding, we only have had one successful relocated village because of climate change is really going on. And that's equivalent to 1:800 ratio. And this is very alarming. It's worrying. I'm worried because in 2050, that's 30 years away. And we need to come up with a strategy, a plan to cater for our people, our ohana, ocean, to protect everything around it, including the vanua. And guess what? In 30 years' time, yes, that's right, you and I will be leading for our nation. And my question is, what are we going to do about it? As environmentalists, as climate change advocates, as the future leader for our Ohana, Oceania, it is a message that I would like to leave with you today. It is don't wait for government, don't wait for NGOs, CSOs, INGOs, or your community leaders. They start initiatives or to protect your coastal villages or your home. You're ordained as the custodian of our Vanua, Nongo Vanua, Hoku Vanua, passed down from generations to generations from our forefathers. My message is be the change. That's simple. We should be the change. Take ownership and responsibility for the cause and protect Oceania. From the PSSD Students Association and the USP from USP, thank you so much, Youth for Pacific, for having me, and Gavunata, and all the best to the parents.
Vinaka Salote, and thank you once again for those empowering words, and just to quickly sum up what you've said, and I think your message was very loud and clear when you said be the change, take ownership, and this is exactly what we want young people to do. And it's amazing to see young people like yourselves taking the lead and trying to be the voices of the Pacific. So thank you so much once again, Salote. And now allow me to introduce our second speaker for today, Mr. Andrew Paris. He is a master's student and scholarship recipient of the USB Pacific European Union Marine Partnership Program, and he has spent the better part of 4 years researching in the field of marine pollution in Fiji and the Pacific. And also during his time, he has also undertaken research on sharks and rays of Fiji for various organizations. So the floor is yours, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, Bulavanaka, everyone. So the lives of Pacific people are intrinsically linked to the ocean, which lies at the heart of our culture, our economy, health, and livelihoods. Now, what if I told you that besides coal and oil, there's another petrochemical product that also lies at the heart of our existence? Plastics. Just like our links to the ocean, plastics are linked to fossil fuels. And now I'm going to tell you a little story of plastics in the Pacific. Our plastic entanglement in Pacific Island societies is tied in with our increasingly westernized lifestyles. Increasingly, us Pacific Islanders are living in a material world, and plastics are the prevailing sign of modernism. Look around you right now. I'll give you a couple seconds. Look around you. Countless types and countless numbers of plastics that we don't think about, but that is around us, that is on us, and that is in us. We live against, our lives are set against a plastic backdrop, a 3D synthetic stage, and the very fabric of Pacific Island culture is woven together by synthetic threads. A fabric that is also smothering our moana and slowly but surely smothering us and our livelihoods. Now, plastics isn't so much the problem. Plastics have allowed for medical breakthroughs, have allowed for things like aeroplanes to be lighter, to use less fuels, right? Plastics are a vital part of a society. But the problem is the model in which we produce and we use plastics. Our current model is to take, make, use, then use, which is a degenerative cycle, which is the complete antithesis of what a natural cycle is, regenerative. And as Komal alluded to earlier, she said only humans can produce something that nature can't handle, right? Now, just like everywhere else in the world, plastics in the Pacific Islanders are now awash with plastics, right? And we don't have the capacity to effectively deal with all the plastics that we use and produce. So now our oceans are awash with plastics. Pacific Island countries are now, well, there's 3 Pacific Island countries that have been listed in the top 10 countries in terms of mismanaged plastic use per capita per day. So the numbers validate or reaffirm things that we see around us every day, an increased amount of plastic litter. Now, my research journey as a marine pollution scientist has taken me all around the Pacific and brief ventures into other parts of the Pacific. And there's one simple trend that we are finding. There are plastics everywhere we look. Coastal environments, rivers, soil, deep ocean, offshore environments, isolated islands, urbanized islands, we are finding plastics in our water, in sediment, and increasingly our seafood. Now, this is worrying because Pacific Islanders consume, on average, twice the volume of seafood than anywhere else in the world. So this is something that we should be seriously worried about. Because our food systems and the natural systems that rely on are now tainted with plastics, so are we. Emergent research has shown that plastics are impacting us in ways we didn't imagine. It's causing, well, I'll give you one example. Compounds of all plastics that we used have been found to decrease fertility in mice. And this could be one of the main causes as to why human fertility has decreased in the last 30 years. Now, not only is this an issue we should all be worried about, right? What I want the youth that are listening to take out of this talk is that, first of all, think about the story that I just told you. Be educated, be aware, but most of all, be inspired to be part of the change and to share a vision of a plastic-free ocean and a healthy ocean. Yunaka.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for sharing that with us. And I think for the audience, I think Andrew, in this short few minutes that he has spoken, he has shared, so many points with us that we would be taking home with us, the fact that, plastics are so vital in our everyday lives. But then when you look around us, plastic is everywhere. It's becoming such a hindrance, and the overconsumption of plastics and the fact that, like he mentioned, that research has shown that human fertility has been decreasing because, over the years, as marine organisms are consuming the small portions of plastics for years and years, these do to some extent end up in the human bodies as well, affecting fertility. And of course, Andrew, the last few sentences you said, I really loved it. The fact that the message that you passed on to the young people to be educated, be aware, and, we need a plastic-free future and an environment that is healthy. So something for the audience to take, and also for the audience, if you have any questions that you would like to pose to the panelists, please do feel free to drop your questions in the chat box or in the questions and answers, and we'll ask them after the panel discussion. So moving on to our third speaker. I'm just going to give a few seconds to Eferemo to join the screen. My apologies to the audience and the panelists. Please do bear with us for a few minutes while Eferemo is joining us shortly. As I had mentioned earlier, guys, this is a virtual platform, so we do come up with a few glitches every now and then. So, it just happens. So please just bear with us. And I think give us a few seconds. I know that Eferemo is online. He's just joining into this session. So he can appear on the screen with us and be a part of this conversation with us. And while we're waiting for Eferemo, maybe a question for the audiences as well that, sorry about that. Hi, so we have Eferemo with us. Hi, Eferemo. I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Okay. Jesus Christ, I am so pissed off with this game. The longest time I'm telling them to keep this. Oh my God, this is so horrible. I can't get this sorted.
Don't stress out too much, Alisi.
Are we okay now?
Okay. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yes. I do apologize to the audience for the minor glitches we had, but we have Eferemo with us. So just allow me to introduce him briefly before he takes on the floor. So Eferemo is a dedicated individual that is very passionate about environment conservation and sustainable development of natural resources for the benefit of resource owners and users. And with a Bachelor of Arts in Marine Affairs and Geography from the University of the South Pacific, Eferemo has worked as a conservation and research officer at the Itauke Affairs and is currently now with the Wildlife Conservation Society Fiji program that supports the development and implementation of ecosystem-based management plans in the Bua province, the island of Ovalau, and Koro, and the district of Nakoro Tumbu Indra and Vailevu Kondrove. And the floor is all yours, Eferemo. And you can, okay, I can see you now. Over to you.
Bulavanak, everybody. Apologies for the technical glitches, mishaps. I had a presentation prepared. Unfortunately, I cannot share the screen with you because the computer will not allow me to do that. So today I'll be speaking on the work that the wildlife conservation does in terms of ocean health and sustainability in Fiji, and the lessons that that I'll be sharing are things that can be replicated across the Pacific. So the title of my presentation is Ecosystem-Based Management and its Importance to Ocean Health and Sustainability. Just an introduction to the organization for those of you who are not aware of the Wildlife Conservation Society. We are an international NGO based out of New York, and we were founded in 1895. So we are quite an ancient organization, you can say, but in Fiji we have only been around for 20 years. And we've been working with several communities in Fiji in the development, in supporting the development and the implementation of ecosystem-based management plans in their communities. Just a few programs that we support as an organization. Apart from the EBM plans, we also work in the area of mud crab post-harvest handling, sea cucumber fisheries, pearl oyster farms, watershed management, gender research and women's role in fisheries, as well as biological monitoring and analysis of our fishing boundaries. So those are a few things that that the organization supports. We also provide policy advice to the national government as and when requested in the natural resource management space and conservation. Supporting communities to manage their resources, sustainably, so that they can continue to rely on nature for their livelihoods. The area that we work in is classified as the Vatuira Seascape, and these include the province of Mbua, the district of Wailebu in the Kondrawe, the district of Ndausamu in Tailebu, the district of Nakortumbu in Ra, and the province of Lomaiviti, the Ovalau and Koro Islands. So this is where we work. Now straight into ecosystem-based management. The reason why I have chosen to speak on ecosystem-based management is because it is a holistic approach from the ridge to the reef, and this includes, the ocean that we are currently talking about. So, as I was saying, EBM is an integrated approach that considers all ecosystems and micro ecosystems that can be found along the ridges all the way to the reef. The ridge, these are the mountains and the freshwater systems, the lakes, and all the way to the coastal areas, which include mangroves and the reefs. And it also includes us, humans, as resource users and owners. So when these plans are developed, it is a consultative process. It is a bottom-up approach process, and we invite stakeholders from both the government and private stakeholders within the areas that we are working in to contribute to the development of these ecosystem-based management plans and the activities that go together with the managing of these natural resources. I had wonderful pictures to show you guys about the work that we do. Unfortunately, I can't show it. So as an organization, we recognize that our natural environment is all connected. Our land is connected to the rivers, rivers connected to the seas, plants and animals, and even our culture. As you know, we in the Pacific, we are very close or closely tied to our natural resources, and the way we use it is based on how we were brought up, our ancestors, how they use it, and that's how we are working to continue to sustain these practices. Now, as an organization, WCS values the importance of science. So we are a science-driven and a science-based organization. So whatever work that we carry out, if it's to do with pearl farming or mud crab, we carry out our scientific research before we do our work. So that the scientific research, the socioeconomic research, and we analyze this data so that it'll assist us to implement the activities properly, and the communities benefit out of this. So the results from the surveys, so if we do coral reef monitoring, if we do catch per unit effort, this is to do with fish and the amount of fish you catch in a given time and the location that you go to. The results of these are then relayed back to the communities so that they can see exactly their impact or the impacts of their activities, of human activities, to their natural environment. And there are so many activities that we do as humans. Andrew referred to us using plastics. We continue to dump all these rubbish into the ocean, and we've had numerous cleanup campaigns. I understand One Talk Moana in the University of the South Pacific, those little groups have been doing cleanup campaigns along marine campus for the longest time, and still rubbish continues to pollute our marine ecosystems. Apart from coral reef monitoring, we also do surveys which include sea cucumber surveys. Sea cucumbers, the beach doma. We assess stocks in the fishing grounds that we work in, and
Yeah, we also document the work that we do with fishes. These include women fishers, these include indigenous fishers, as well as Indo-Fijian and other ethnicities that use our ocean space. So like the rest of the Pacific, Fiji is surrounded by a vast expanse of ocean, and we depend on this for food, for medicine, for a source of livelihood, and among other things. We also travel on the sea. If we want to go to Honolulu or if we want to go on a round trip around the world, sometimes we travel in a boat. So that's how important the ocean is. And during this EBM planning process, we work with communities to identify areas of significance for them. So if in terms of the ocean space, the communities themselves identify, okay, this place is where a certain type of fish spawn. So you can say the kaukaua or the grouper species and donu. They identify, okay, this place is where we need to have a marine protected area so that these fish species can continue to thrive. And we've had communities that have actually marked that down. We work on developing maps. We do mapping exercises during our EBM planning process, and these are shared back with the communities. In terms of youth involvement, we always encourage youth to be part of the work that we do. So when we go out to do sampling, a lot of the youths try to participate in these activities, and they see the linkages from why it is important that they conserve the watersheds, and how the pollution of these watersheds, how it's related to the end result of our coral reefs dying. So if we continue to protect our watersheds, we continue to manage waste properly, wastewater disposal, solid waste disposal, all these things are related, and this is how you can either protect the ocean and conserve it, or you destroy it. There's a lot of videos that we see online of countries that have been dumping waste in the river systems, and we think that these systems are not connected, but then where do you think the river leads up to? It all ends up in the ocean. I really wish I could share these pictures with you. Maybe I'll share it with the organizers so that you can actually see the work that we do with the youth and the community. In terms of science and traditional environmental knowledge, the WCS actually promotes the use of traditional knowledge when it comes to conservation and management of ocean resources. So as you know, all our cultures, we have different forms of conservation. Before ecosystem EBM came into place, we had this practice of doing periodical tambus in our own places. This is because we're observing the death of a high chief, or we actually just wanted to protect some form of marine resource that we have in our fishing boundaries. And we understand and we recognize the importance of a traditional environmental knowledge, and merging that with the science that is brought about by the organization. And merging these two can have a considerable impact on the management of our ocean resources. And we also recognize the importance of intergenerational knowledge sharing. So when we do mapping exercises during our EBM process, we always encourage the elderly and the youth and the women to form groups so that they share the knowledge that they have. Some places, it's said to say that some practices of, fishing methods or farming methods that were practiced before have sort of died out because these knowledge have been lost as, our elderly members of society have passed on. And even with this COVID pandemic.
I'm so sorry, Eferemo. I'm just a bit conscious of time as well, as the panelists were allocated 7 minutes each. So if I can give you another minute or so, and then I will have to hand it over to the next panelist, if that's all right.
I have one more
My
slide.
apologies for that. Okay, thank you.
So yeah, as I was saying, the COVID, the impact of COVID on our elderly population. A lot of people in Fiji, a lot of those that have died have been the elderly, and it's sad to say that the knowledge that they have has gone with them. Most of them have not been able to share this with the younger generation, and so that's important for us as youth, for you as youth, to actually document and share these knowledge with each other. Lastly, the future of our oceans. As I said, it's important to safeguard our oceans and resources. Young people should continue to engage actively in the monitoring of the management actions, that they've implemented in terms of ocean resource use. Continue to engage and absorb knowledge from your the elderly population within your own communities, as this will help you to navigate and make decisions for your ocean resources. And continue to provide recommendations to government in terms of things that you feel from the community that will be beneficial to the government in terms of governing our ocean resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eferemo. I think that was very insightful and really, really detailed. And thank you so much for that. And, as I had mentioned earlier, there are always a few ups and downs or glitches that we encounter during, such virtual conferences. So we all have been through it. But once again, thank you so much. And just to quickly highlight, one of the key messages that you had mentioned about the importance of science or how you sort of look at science or evidence-based approach in terms of gathering data and doing projects. So that has been really insightful as well. And thank you so much. So moving on to our fourth speaker for the day, Miss Alisi.
Yes.
She is one of Fiji's leading ocean experts. I'm sorry, Inese, I think your microphone is switched on. Sorry about that. Thank you. Sorry. So let me just quickly introduce Alisi before I hand over the floor to her. She's one of Fiji's leading ocean experts who for the past decade has worked in environmental conservation, climate activism, and indigenous peoples' traditional rights and knowledge advocacy. She works as a marine scientist with IUCN, providing consultation on marine protected areas within Fiji. She also sits on the youth-led grassroots network 350.org Pacific Climate Various Council of Elders as the Melanesian representative. And she is also one of the few Melanesian women who have sailed the world's seas on a waka, a traditional double-hulled canoe as part of the Spirit of the Ocean journey, where sailors navigated waters across the Pacific Ocean, promoting traditional sustainable shipping and ocean protection. And I hand it over to you, Alisi. Thank you.
Thank you, Komal. And just before I begin, I would like to apologize for our panicked outburst just before his presentation. Fortunately, we were both in the same room. We have the same bubble. So we decided to come and hang together to do it. And I'm just thankful that it eventually went through. And again, my sincere apologies to everyone. And I also had a presentation prepared, but then we both realized as we were working through all those glitches that I also cannot share my presentation. So I will just speak to it today. Thank you. So again, as Komal had shared, I work as the Fiji Project Liaison Officer for IUCN, and we do marine spatial planning work in several countries across the Pacific, Fiji, Tonga, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, and most recently Samoa. And what I had wanted, and a lot of my presentation was visual, so I will try as best as possible to just articulate the work. So what I wanted to talk about was an overview of what marine protected area and marine spatial planning looks like, what it looks like to build a map that represents the best possible places to protect within our exclusive economic zones, within our maritime boundaries of the Pacific, and what is the process that goes into that, the type of data used, and why our inputs matter. And Fiji, and most of my reflections and sharings are based on examples in Fiji. Fiji, along with all the other countries that I mentioned, we're working in the Pacific, have committed to protecting 30% of the exclusive economic zones of their oceans. And that has been a very exciting commitment because, it always shows that we Pacific Islanders are always at the forefront of the work, and we're always leaders in the way we do the work. And probably just to tangent a little bit on that as well, I was in a few sessions around maritime boundaries, and I also learned that we are way ahead of most other countries globally in delimiting our maritime boundaries and where we sit across the Pacific, over 75%. And that is really an indication of our close relationships and our understanding of the ocean and how interconnected it is with us. And when I'm saying us, I am meaning us in the Pacific. And so really this conversation is just to, not to advocate or anything, but really just to further highlight that we already know our relationships have been built over millennia of how to do the work. And it's really just us stepping into that space. And so maybe to maybe bring it down a little bit, settle it a little bit, I wanted to talk a bit about ocean values. Ocean values, when you look at the ocean, there's the biodiversity value of it, of the different biodiversity that's present, the different species, the underwater features that are present there, the minerals in the water, and how this ecological system is all connected, right? And then also you think about the type of activities that are happening: mining, forestry, sediment and nutrient discharge from agriculture, climate change and sea level rise, invasive species, new uses like deep sea mining, waste management, fisheries, coastal zone development. So always in this space, there are these different competing uses of the space. Protection of biodiversity, biodiversity that lives within that space, as well as how we use and extract from that space. And then probably a third one I want to add into that as well is the threats of the space. These are often cyclones, disaster, earthquakes, and climate change. And for those who probably may not be familiar, marine protected area is really an area set aside to be managed and protected. And that can be established for a number of reasons. Again, economic resource, biodiversity conservation, species protection. Yeah. So it's always this balancing act. What are we protecting and what are we allowing to extract? Because economic development is always on the table. The money, the finances continuing to build financially. That's the world that we live in. There's the world that we dream of and we target, and there's also the reality of the world we live in now and how we function in it. So there's always multiple things happening. And across all the Pacific Island countries where we do this work, there are different ways of doing the work. So what IUCN has done, what partners have done collectively is identify the best processes to undertake, the steps to take in order to identify the best ecologically representative network of marine protected areas in a place to protect. And then when this is taken to countries, they apply their context. You know, it's not to say, come and say, you have to do it this way. We tell them, these are the steps you need to take. And then they say, okay, maybe we can go into consultations first, then we come back and draft the map. Okay, maybe we already have enough information to create a map and take it out to people to see what they think about it. Maybe we don't have anything at all, we should just have a conversation to begin with. Different ways, but there are key pieces that need to be hit in order to develop a map. And these are getting your data sets, developing a guideline on how to choose your best possible sites, the decision support tools that you use, particularly in GIS for this work, creating a map, and most importantly, the consultations. And the consultations are important. It's something I always push, because you have to ask, do the maps make sense? Is anything missing? How will different sectors or people be affected? And probably to bring it into this space for young people to also push to always be in those space and to want to be in those space to participate, because the decisions that are being made today are looking at impacts 20, 30 years from now when they become the ones at the helm. So it's important to be part of the conversation now. And there are a whole bunch of links and reports and photos that I also wanted to share, talking about the different types of research that has gone into this. And it's years and years of work of developing special unique marine areas reports, identifying the areas that need to be protected, of developing a report on bioregions. And this is a neutral value description of our ocean. And if I could show you the map, it would show the economic exclusive zone of a place, and it's got different colors there. And what the different colors would represent is each space represents an assemblage of species that live there, and it's different from another color. So when you're trying to protect your ocean, you have to cut across as many of those different ecosystems as possible to ensure you have a different, as much high species diversity as possible protected. So those are some of the things that go into consideration in all of this. And I really, really wanted to show you the maps because it really helps with the explanation. But I'll probably just have that presentation there for now. And just to say that once all of these data sets, like for Fiji, there's over 120 data sets. Once you factor in the uses like tuna fisheries, once you factor in trading routes, the other different uses of the space, threats, even climate change, salinity, acidification, pH, all of these things go into this into consideration. You'll start to realize it's not impossible to factor all of those in our minds. So that's why we use decision support tools like MarkSen that run iterations of this across the map, and finally it develops the best possible places to protect. And there's a few other cool little techie things you can do in there, but it really wouldn't make sense unless I could show you. But I'm grateful at least for this opportunity at the Youth for Pacific Space to come and share a bit about that work. And if I had to give sort of like a takeaway from here, we need more people in this space of work, particularly in geospatial planning, marine spatial planning, to come in and do this work. And a lot of these reports that we work from were developed between 2014 to 2018. And so in terms of data, we know that there needs to be review, so there needs to be more study done. If you're thinking of a place to get into, this is something you might want to sink your teeth into, looking at how we can continue to update the data that we have to give better informed decisions to leadership and policy. And yeah, and the consultations continue, the work continues, and we hope that by 2030 that we would have achieved our targets under the new post-2020 biodiversity framework, not only for Fiji, but also across the Pacific, in the countries that I mentioned, Fiji, Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Tonga, and Samoa. And probably just to end off, I had a message from a friend just a while ago before I hopped on, and she said that the Fiji climate change bill had been passed. And I thought that was pretty awesome news. There's a huge ocean component in there, and at least for our Fiji participants, it would be good to go and read up on that and understand more of what that bill means for us and the work that we do. That's it from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alisi, for that. And thank you so much for all our panelists today. And I do know that we did encounter a few technical difficulties, and I guess we started a bit late as well. So we have reached our allocated time quota, but just very, very quickly, we have received 1 or 2 questions, and I'll just ask one question for the panelists, and anyone of you can step up to answer that. Maybe just summing up your response in 1 minute, and then we can finish off the session from here, if that's all right. So we had received a question that is there regenerative ways to use plastic, or should we be weaning ourselves off plastic? So this is a question that one of our participants had for the panelists. Maybe Andrew, you would like to answer this question?
Yeah, thank you. That was a very good question. In terms of regenerative plastics, I've been keeping up to date with the readings, and it's the data I'm getting, the ensemble result, or looking at all the different data, it seems like we're almost there in terms of bioplastic, in terms of compostable plastics, in terms of plastics that do break down into natural and organic products. In terms of weaning ourselves off plastic, there will be plastics that we produce that will not be able to be bioplastics or regenerative plastics, right? There's certain plastics that have to hold things like, have to be temperature resistant, for example, styrofoams. There's certain plastics that have to be really hard and rigid. I don't foresee that we'll be able to make any, there's any bio alternatives for that. So there are plastics that we can definitely cut out of our use, but and that's the ones we should be targeting, right? So a combination of both, weaning ourselves off plastics and just inching ourselves, or that push towards more bio-friendly organic plastic alternatives. Okay.
Thank you, Andrew, for that. And once again, I would like to thank the panelists for the insightful discussions. And again, I do apologize for some of the lags and the timing, but thank you so much, and thank you for the participants for being so patient with us and for these insightful discussions. I could see the comments coming in, and just quickly for the participants as well, the key messages from this session will be noted down as well, and it will be fed into the youth declaration that we will be working on tomorrow. So please do keep an eye out on the program for tomorrow, as we'll have a lot of conversations at the main stage regarding the youth declaration. And for now, from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., we would be having another series of workshops. So, on the left-hand side, you can see the tab on sessions. So you can choose the workshop that you are interested in and join in and, engage more. And once again, like we have been saying, please do click on the networking tab as well on your left-hand side and network as much as possible, make connections, learn from each other. And, I guess this is what that really matters, especially for the young people. As Salote had mentioned before, networking is the key, and just make the most of this platform. And as George always emphasizes at the main stage, familiarize yourself with Hopin and make the most of it for the next 2 days. So with that, I would like to call this session to an end. And once again, thank you so much to the panelists and to our audience for joining us. So thank you so much. And Vinaka, bye.